You're going to have everybody revert back to the law of nature. You're going to have everybody revert back to the right to everything. In order to live in society, we give up our right to everything for these little civil liberties. If you don't give us these if you don't allow us to express our little freedoms, then it's going to go back to a war of all versus all. And we know what happens with a war of all versus all. According to Hobbes, all perish. Our lives are short and bastardized and awful and terrible and solitary and brutish. And so being a crybaby snowflake, being offended, that does not equal disturbing the peace. So maybe you could say disturbing the peace is something. Sometimes there's incidental limitations on an interest because of an important government interest, but you cannot say that the desecration of a venerated object is an important government interest. It's not consistent with the First Amendment. The government cannot presume that every expression of a provocative idea will incite a riot. Well, he just said, fuck the police. Well, what about fuck the criminals? What about fuck Trinidad Aragua? I'm sure that would piss off Trinidad Aragua. So you can't just presume that every expression of a provocative idea will incite a riot. That's really quite stupid. That's foolish. Can people not entertain ideas without acting upon them? So Gregory Lee Johnson, the facts of the case is, after a march through the city streets, this is the 1984 Republican Convention in Dallas, Texas, Gregory Lee Johnson was shitting on Ronald Reagan's policies and Dallas-based corporations too. So he was shitting on the corporations of Dallas and shitting on the Reagan policies, talking shit, not literally shitting on them. Nobody was threatened with injury. There was no injury to anybody's person or property, but some people were offended. Bunch of crybaby snowflake. I'm offended. Oh, you thin-skinned motherfuckers. Gregory Lee Johnson is going to get convicted and he's sentenced to 1 year in jail and a $2,000 fine. Supreme Court should just knock this motherfucker out of the park. Say that Jan Carey, 54-year-old Jan Carey, for burning the American flag, that's okay. That is A-okay in this country. No, we're not a bunch of fascist fucks. We have a constitution. We have a Bill of Rights. We've already decided this. This is a conservative opinion. This is Scalia. Scalia says you have the right to the First Amendment. If you're not even going to be conservative of the classical liberal things that we have, you're going to even overturn goddamn conservative precedent. So you are just making it up as you go along. So Gregory Lee Johnson was critical of Reagan and the Dallas corporations, but that doesn't equal fighting words. You're allowed to say that, ExxonMobil polluting the ocean is a bad thing. You're allowed to say bombing a bunch of fishermen outside of Venezuela is a bad thing. You want to say that's fighting words? I think you can take fighting words to a whole nother level. Fighting words was calling the cop fascist. Fighting words was calling a police officer a something monger. Some sort of racketeer. Hey, you son of a fucking racketeer. Oh, you son of a racketeer, huh? Hell, that might be the nicest thing I've ever heard anybody say. You're just calling me a son of a racketeer? That's it? But what was going on was the cop was arresting that person, and then because they were acting like an authoritarian fascist kidnapping person, then you had, this is Chaplinsky, a Jehovah's Witness, says, hey, you're a racketeer, you're a goddamn fascist. And it's like, well, I wasn't pissed off, but after you criticized me kidnapping you and calling me a fascist, that's fighting words. Yeah, okay. Words that are a personal insult and it's an invitation to exchange fisticuffs. Going back to Hobbes, you should not have any contempt for your fellow human being by expressing any kind of hatred towards your fellow human being. That's an invitation to war. So a state can stop imminent lawless action. Okay, so we're drawing up the parameters here. This is, the majority opinion. Burning the American flag is not inciting a riot. Burning the American flag is not fighting words. Burning the American flag when you say that I am protesting Reagan's policies and these goddamn corporations in Dallas, Texas, there is no imminent lawless action. When the protest turns into imminent lawless action, then the government can step in. But the argument that the state of Texas had argued in court was they were trying to preserve the U.S. flag as a symbol of nationhood and national unity. But the First Amendment is the right to expression, therefore it's outside the O'Brien test. Fisticuffs is fighting with fist. Like Musangwe, where you just have bare-knuckled fights, where you're just scrapping. They also cite Booz v. Berry. You know, it's kind of crazy that I actually put so much emphasis on law. I feel like there's a story. There's an adjudication of all these different interests when it comes to law. So Booz v. Berry, who the fuck listens to Boo v. Berry? The fucking magistrate's going to be talking about string cheese. There's some goddamn fucking far off goddamn motherfucking like an appeals court or a fucking, you know, a trial court decision about string cheese and whether or not the discovery is allowed or not, whatever. Some very specific, very small and specific, and it's like, well, it's got a 5-prong analysis. Oh, you like prongs, huh? Okay, well, what about the prongs about an interlocutory appeal? Did you use those prongs? Did you apply that 3-step test? Of course you didn't. Of course you didn't. It doesn't matter if the speech is offensive or if it's disagreeable. That's not a good enough a reason to prevent verbal or nonverbal expression. It's a 5-4 decision, so not the strongest decision in the world. Rehnquist is going to dissent, and Stevens is going to dissent. So who all went along with William J. Brennan Jr.? Well, Thurgood Marshall did. Thurgood Marshall and Scalia. When you have Thurgood Marshall and Antonin Scalia agreeing on a decision, you go along with that decision. You also had Blackmun, and Kennedy had joined. So Brennan, Kennedy, Scalia, Blackmun, and Thurgood Marshall says you have a right to burn the American flag. A witness to the flag burning had collected the remains of the flag and they buried it in his backyard. That's too much. That's too far. You took a bunch of ashes and you're like, oh my gosh, not my U.S. American flag. Why did you do that? You have a poop mouth. You got a poop mouth. Right, for all you goddamn... What's that journalist Will Ferrell movie? Whatever. West Virginia State Board of Education versus Barnett, 1943. We already decided that students cannot be forced to stand up and salute the American flag or chant the Pledge of Allegiance if it's against their religious beliefs. Compulsion is illegal. So that's an interesting case. West Virginia State Board of Education versus Barnett, 1943. And the sincerity of your religious views do not matter. That's my religion. My religion says I don't have to stand up for the fucking flag or your shitty, stupid pledge. It's a socialist pledge. Actually, I've gone back and forth with the Pledge of Allegiance. A witness to flag burning collected the remains of the flag and buried it in his backyard. Students cannot be forced to salute it. Right now I'm hearing gunshots. So motherfuckers, you know, that's a free speech issue too. So not only do I don't want to hear this shit, you know, that's a disturbance of the peace, right? Shots fired, you know. Hey, 911, shots fired. So it's Second Amendment, First Amendment, but in a way you have to tolerate a little bit of fucking bullshit in America. Hopefully a crime didn't just occur. But it's these motherfuckers. I'm going to presume someone just firing a bunch of guns off is some sort of right-wing, either conservative or fascist, dumb fucking Nazi piece of shit. And he could have done something bad. He could, you know, having bad speech. Maybe he's threatening the whole goddamn neighborhood. Maybe he's threatening fighting. That's fighting words to everybody. Maybe he's trying to incite a goddamn riot. But he's trying to incite a riot. He's got fighting words. He's allowed to fire his fucking gun.